Michelle, and I have a guest today, Stephanie, who has a parenting question and she is going to ask it. So, Stephanie, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Stephanie. I live in Virginia and I have four children. They're 6, 10, 12, and 14. And I'm a stay home parent. And then my husband works full time, mostly from home. And I do have a question. So, to preface, I've done a lot of work over the years and learning to set boundaries and set them in a way that I can handle if the kids get upset about those boundaries and not then take the next step and punish them for being upset about their feelings about those
Right.
boundaries, which a couple years ago I was not equipped to
Great.
do. To do.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's
but now,
amazing.
if I'll say like, we've already, if it's for the screens, say, like, we're not going to do any more TV right now. We're not going to turn it back on. And, sometimes, especially the younger ones, will get upset about it. And I'm at a point where I can say, "Cool, I'm gonna turn this off, and that's what we're gonna do." And if everyone gets upset, or even if they're whining, or even screaming, which can be a lot for the sensory system, like either way, it's like I've done what I need to do what I think is needs to be done for everyone's
Yeah.
health or safety or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but where I'm still struggling is, and I hesitate to even use the words I'm using because I know it's already not a good framing of like, what if I need to require the kids to do something where
Right.
how do I
No,
get
I
them
don't
to do
I
to
don't
do
think that's I think it's cooperation, right? That's really what we're
Yeah.
talking about. We need at some point in time in our parenting, we need cooperation from our kids because we can't
Mhm.
just have them say no to everything.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And, there are certainly times where they do they are great kids, and, I again, I think I do have a at least good enough relationship, with them that there certainly are some times or plenty of times where they're, not driving me crazy all the time, but,
Yeah.
in that sense. But there are I can, give an example. One of my children is doing a summer school course. It's online, um, and she's very independent about it. She goes, she does her work, but um, on the second day of the class, she came running up from. She's got a little school room we set up for her in the basement. She came upstairs and she said, "Mom, the Zoom isn't working. I need some help. I can't get into class. So let me come down and see what we can do." And I went down, and one of my other younger children, I think, just really wanted to play with me. We had been hanging out, together, and I came
Yeah.
down and I said, "I need to help your sister, so I need to help her right now." And she couldn't handle being just in the room while I was trying to help with the computer. It was a lot of she wanted to play and was starting to climb on me, and said, "Okay, you're going to need to go. I need you to just go back up to the living room. You can play with someone else, play with your toys, but I need to help your sister. This is a time sensitive for her school." And she wouldn't go, and she started trying to kind of close her sister's laptop. And so eventually I had to say, like, I just got so frustrated. I said,
Yeah.
"Listen, if you don't go upstairs right now, you're not going to see a screen for the rest of the day for any reason. And if you come back down, it's not gonna happen either." And, I could see she looked really sad, and then she kinda went upstairs, and I could hear her as she was walking up the stairs, like, "Mom hates me." And, I could tell even in that moment as it was happening, it was like, "Okay, I know this is not a good idea." Like, I could tell in that moment, "Okay, now I'm
But
gonna
what
have to do."
else do you do? You're
Yeah,
like,
what else do you do?
yeah.
Yeah, and I needed to call, like a tech support person to help. I need to
Oh,
help with the computer, and we
geez.
got it all figured out, and she was, good to go. Um, but, I just really needed a couple of minutes to help,
Yeah.
and again, it's like my oldest child, like, with having 4 children, she gets the least of me of it of anyone else
Totally.
anyway. Um, um,
Okay.
and, or things are if I'm it seems to come up the most if what I'm doing is something that involves spending time with a different child.
Is it
Either
always the youngest that has the hard time, or is it
she does have the
everybody?
she does have the hardest time. I will sometimes hear comments from some of the other kids, like, "I'm doing something with so and so right now," and they will say like, "Oh, well, of course you're always busy." Yeah, I'll hear that a lot. Which may maybe even well be the case that I seem to always maybe need to be doing something with
The little one.
somebody. Um, but it is hardest with the little one. She will be the one if I say I'm reading or I'm reading a book or I'm doing some
Yeah.
one-on-one time with one of the kids. Sometimes it'll be a lot of like I can go in another room and lock the door to do what I
Yeah.
can do, but then I'll hear her like banging on the door, crying, and
Yeah.
um
Tell me about the sibling rivalry. Is there a lot of sibling rivalry?
Yes, I I would say that there and it's a very different dynamic between any 2, if you were to
Kids.
pair off among the 4 is the ones that are closer in age to one another do tend to have more conflict.
Do you feel like the older ones get in a lot of conflict with the youngest?
Um, not not a lot, especially my oldest, I think, is
Older.
at a point where she's kind of I think mature enough to see like, all right, well, I'm just gonna walk away from the from
Right,
if any of the younger ones are trying to pick at her. I think she can kind of already see what's happening and
right.
doesn't engage. Maybe she's just old enough to
To
be able to kind of see
rationalize.
yeah what's going on. Um, but yeah, there is quite a bit of sibling rivalry, I
And
would say.
is there always somebody who's kind of the instigator?
Um, Not really, no. I think it seems to be a pretty even
Okay.
even
Is the
split,
youngest
especially
ever the instigator?
sometimes, yes, yes.
Okay. All right. I'm just wondering, like, maybe this could be stemming from some of the sibling rivalry, and maybe this is an overflow of that, and that I don't know how the sibling rivalry relationship is playing out in your house, but maybe perhaps the little one is used to being protected. Sometimes we see that where, we'll tell the older kids like, "Well, she's young, just don't listen to her or don't bother her so much or, she's little." And the older kids kinda have to kowtow to the younger ones sometimes. Sometimes we see that happen, especially in multi-kid families. I don't know if that's happening or not in your family.
Yeah. It may be happening a little bit, it's hard there are times where there's so much noise and everyone's, fighting, and
Yeah.
sometimes it is hard not to, I guess, take sides in a way, especially if
Yeah,
what I think I see or think I'm seeing or I'm perceiving is that one person is the one picking on the other
right.
one.
So maybe when we take sides, then we create this dichotomy where that's kind of that's our MO. That's how we're showing up to the sibling relationship, is that we're taking a side. So maybe your younger daughter could feel like you're on the older daughter's side because you're spending the time with her and you're not spending the time with the little one. So she feels like it's a something against her, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
So I'm thinking if we can clean up the sibling rivalry, will this also benefit this other cooperation situation where we're seeing with the little one where she's constantly in your she's just can't let you go,
Mhm.
right? So she just needs you all the time, especially when it's like all of a sudden they don't need you until you're trying to help your older daughter with Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Because she notices, "Oh, mom's paying attention to her. She's picked her side, not my side." And so if we're picking sides all the time, then the kids are constantly vying to get you on their side,
Mhm.
even outside of the sibling relationship. So if we can clean up the sibling, dynamic, I think, and also add in daily special time for 2 kids per day, I think what I would suggest for you. Like, the oldest and the youngest go on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever, and the 2 middle ones go on the other days because having 4 kids, it's too hard. I think if we do those 2 things over 2 weeks, I think you'll see an increase in cooperation.
Okay.
So let's tackle the sibling rivalry piece. I'll tell you what I think really works is just trying to be as neutral as possible, because the sibling relationship is something that's been going on for, how old's your oldest? 14?
14, yeah.
Yeah. So some of these really, and how old's the youngest? 12? I mean,
Uh,
the next
the
one?
next oldest is 12. Mhm.
12. So it's been going on for 12 years, right? The sibling relationship. And so it's a very circuitous path. Sometimes one child is right, sometimes the other child is right. Sometimes, somebody's the aggressor, sometimes somebody else is the aggressor. And so when we see a certain snapshot in time, a certain thing happening with our kids, it isn't necessarily the full story of their relationship. And when we come in and say, "You hit her, you can't hit her. What happened?" We don't know. Did she trip her sister on the way up the stairs right before that? Did she say something like, "You're dumb," on the way to the bathroom? And is this just a retaliation? And so when we just catch that one thing and we act on it, we really dismiss the other interactions that have been going on between these two kids. So it's better just to be super neutral and say, "Oh, what's going on here, guys? What happened? What are you doing? Somebody's hurt. Oh my gosh, what's going on?" And be curious, even if you know what's happening, just to be curious and then to have them really tell you, "She pushed me on the way down the stairs. She's so mean. I don't like her." Ah, come with empathy. "She pushed you? Oh no, you guys are really struggling here. I'm so sorry." Not throwing the other person under the bus, but also giving empathy. Giving the empathy gets their prefrontal back online so that they can think, so we can talk about it, so we can get to a calmer place, hopefully. Then you ask the other child, "What happened? What's going on? What are you doing?" "She pushed me and she said I'm dumb." "Oh, she pushed you. She said you're dumb. This is so hard. I'm so sorry." Empathy, trying to get everybody calm. We don't really care what happened. It doesn't matter what happened. The details of who did what and what was said is really for them to express to us, but we're not taking it in and trying to judge it. We want to hear it and we want to be able to let it go, but we're not going to take sides. If you can get them calmed down, and you probably will be able to for the older kids at least, then you say, like, "Guys, what should we do next time so this doesn't happen? What can you do differently?" And you have them start to problem solve. "What went wrong here? What do you wanna say to your sister? What do you wanna say to your brother?" You really kind of help them resolve the conflict without taking sides. And the more neutral you can be just in general as a parent, I think will kind of decrease this idea that they need to have you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, and I will say when the kids are having any type of fight or rivalry of any sort, there is a lot of, um they do seem to always be, I guess, keeping score in a way in terms of like, well, who's getting in trouble, admit wanting to,
Yeah.
not want to be the one who got in trouble or feel like, well, last time I got in more trouble than, so and so's getting in trouble for this time, they're
Yes. And so
um
if trouble isn't a thing, if nobody is ever getting in trouble, then there's no scorecard to keep.
mhm.
And so I think that piece is playing out probably in all other aspects of your parenting, just slightly.
Yeah. No, that does make sense. It does.
So I think that's a big piece. So really working on that. And unfortunately, it's like you have to do that protocol. You have to like sit with them like a lot. And I would say whenever you hear any sort of kerfuffle happening, get in there right away and start using it because it will escalate. It will get to a bad place. And then you're going to have to come in and people are pulling hair and pushing people down and saying mean things. And it's like, if we can get in there sooner, we can
Mhm.
avoid some of that. So I would try that. And the summertime is a good time to practice that because you have a lot of they are going to have a lot of interaction this summer because everyone's home.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one piece.
Yeah.
Then the other piece is I would start to do the daily special time, 20 minutes with two kids per day. They get to decide whatever it is, the activity that they want. You have to follow along like it's the most exciting thing you've ever done in your entire life. "Oh my gosh, I love Super Mario Brothers. Please teach me everything about it."
Mhm.
Whatever it is for 20 minutes. And that will hopefully fill their connection cups better so that when you do have to step away and help somebody, they're not going to feel like, "Oh, wait, I didn't get it. I didn't get the connection. I want the connection. I need it. I need the connection," because they know they're getting every other day. They're getting this deep dose of connection. It will be hard at first because your little one is not going to let you go with anybody. She's going to be like
Yeah.
on fire. So I would prep her. "Hey, this is what we're doing. What can I set you up with that would be fun?" I would do hers first so that she's
Mhm.
filled up before you do the other kids. And I would really prep her for the day that she doesn't get it. "You're not getting it today," and let her be mad about it. And let her have her tantrum around it and say, "I know, I understand it's really hard," but hold that boundary with her.
Mhm.
Um, and you'll muddle through because it's going to be hard the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'm picturing it being a little bit tough at first.
It is going to be
Yeah.
a little tough. And you can implement sibling special time.
Mhm.
So maybe you want to do on the off days, You could do sibling special time where the youngest is going to play with the oldest, or then maybe the next day the middle one's going to play with the oldest, so that they can have some sibling special time, 15 minutes of one kid being in control and 15 minutes of the other kid being in control. And that will bond them too.
Mhm.
One other thing I was just thinking is you could do family games too, like for 10 minutes, a couple days a week, do hide and seek where you all are playing together. So just to create more camaraderie and togetherness.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I know sometimes if we try to do like the family board games, it's sometimes those don't always go as well, especially if there's any game where one person can make a, I guess, offensive move.
Yeah.
Some of these games.
Yeah. And somebody's losing and somebody's winning, and there's a lot of hurt feelings. And I think sometimes when we can play chase or do a dance party or do musical instruments or make a video, a music video, or like do something that's like a group activity as opposed to like a competitive game.
Mhm.
Or if it is a competitive game, it should be all of them against you so that they can like bond to beat
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In those moments where she's coming in and she's losing it and she won't leave you alone,
Mhm.
I would just in that very moment, I would abandon the Zoom for 1 minute. I would get down on her level and say, "I cannot help you. I know you're gonna be really upset about it, and it's okay. You can have your feelings, but I'm going to stay here with your sister, and I'm gonna do this," and just set that boundary with her and let her have a really big cry about it, even if she's crying and you're also setting this computer. I think that's the best you can do in those moments.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
'cause it's
nothing.
when you don't have a heads up ahead of time that something's coming up. I know that's hard for kids, and, um,
It's hard for parents.
it is, and it's funny because I know, like, I think probably a lot of people in our generation, when I was a kid, of course, there was not an option to even be upset about,
No.
and so now there's almost this part of it, it's like, I'm like, "Don't you see how kind I'm being to you?
Right?
I
I'm
want
trying
you."
so
Yeah,
hard. Do you know where I've come from? Do you know
yeah,
what my
yeah,
parents would have said? And
yeah,
yeah, I think there's a lot of that that
yeah.
comes up for us.
Yeah, it does, which of course isn't fair to the kids, but,
No,
um,
but it's real.
it is, yeah.
It's real. It's palpable, and I don't know about you, but do you get this like heat in your chest and like feeling like you're totally overwhelmed, like the Zoom and she's yelling and what am I going to do? And then my head's going to explode.
Yeah, I do, for sure, and just some of the just a lot of the it's just a lot coming at sensory, of course, if everyone's making a lot of noise, and then, especially if another child wants to try to de-stress by going to, like, play some music, and sometimes
Yeah,
that's just one too many,
noises.
sources of sound,
Yeah,
but yeah, I definitely get a lot of those, and it's, again, a couple years ago, everything I wouldn't even be able to get to the place I am now for sure,
great.
and
You're
holding it
doing
still.
amazing,
I can tell
Stephanie.
there's a lot to go for sure.
Well, if you're listening to feelings and setting boundaries and not using punishments, then you are well on your way. So
Mhm.
you should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
I would try not to use the threats and bribes. I think, like you said, you already know though. They just like they eat away at the connection piece, and I don't think long term they really work.
Mhm.
I really don't. I think at some point they'll be like, I don't care what you threaten. Like I'm going to do what I want anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially maybe your little one, she might be strong-willed. Oh,
Mm.
what's happening here? Okay. Anything else
Um, no, I don't think so. I mean, I'm certain there's a wide variety of things that
that
could
we
come
could
up
go
about
into?
it. Well, but as far as this, yeah, I definitely will, make more of that effort to have the one-on-one special time,
Yep.
um, and then to try, especially when they're fighting. I guess, like you mentioned, to I guess get into it a little bit sooner because there are a lot of times where, especially if I'm doing something, I can hear a fight starting, but I'll sometimes we'll wait to see if they end up needing me because sometimes they don't. But,
Yeah.
um, sometimes it really escalates, and then and
Yeah.
then and then, of course, by then, of course, it does tend to be that, whoever maybe actually laid hands on another person that
Right. Then
ends
they're
up.
in trouble, and it
Yeah,
might not necessarily be their quote unquote "fault," right?
yeah,
And, usually the stronger, bigger ones end up winning
mhm,
when those things happen, and so then it puts the little ones at this place where they're like, "Ugh, I know I never win. I'm always losing," if we don't intervene.
yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, I think that'll be good. I think that will decrease the needing to keep score.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Stephanie, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being part of our community.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. I
Thank
listen
you.
regularly to your podcast, and I
Yay.
always learn a little something. So thank
Good.
you as well.
I'm so glad.